Well, hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're trying Protobelt on Volibear. To be honest, I don't know much about how this item works on him. I saw the Basifs use it in one of his games and it seemed like a viable option. So let's test it out and see why it might be a good pick. This video is split into two parts. One where we absolutely dominate and another where we face a crushing defeat, but both with the same mindset. In this specific game, we're up against a lot of mages, and the enemy mid laner is playing Syndra. Most of you know Syndra is hard to gank as long as she has flash up, but once that's down, she's basically a sitting duck. That's why I think Protobelt could be a solid choice here. It works well against champions with dodge mechanics, like Severe with her spell shield, and I believe Volibear will benefit greatly from this item since it enhances his engage potential. Every aspect of Protobelt plays into Volibear's basic abilities, so it might just be the perfect synergy we need. We're off to a good start, winning the first small team fight. Now, let me say, camping isn't always the best strategy, but when you're up against immobile champions, it's absolutely mandatory. In this game, we have a Quinn top laner, and I'll be honest, I don't have any respect for players who pick champions like Quinn, Vayne, Teemo, or Callista in the top lane. Ranged champions up top just ruin the game dynamic, and I can't count on them to split push in the late game. Quinn is only useful in the early game, and if the player actually good at that champ, but sadly most of the other games it feels like a cheesy pick, and the player is just viable for the early game. It's not healthy for the flow of the game, but I guess this is what happens when the next generation focuses on winning at all costs, instead of just enjoying the game. Priority is just a myth. I've got a lot of gold and backing now would lose us tempo, so it's a risk I'm willing to take. Sometimes you need to go for those big gains and not be afraid to make a bold move. When it comes to lane priority, there are times when you should just sacrifice the wave. I've seen so many coaching videos where they tell junglers, if there's no lane priority, just give up the objectives and go do a full clear. But that's something you should only do if you're 100% sure you're going to lose. There's always a risk, but also a chance to win even when you're behind on prio. You just need to have a basic understanding of matchups, power spikes for certain champions, and who's strong early on. If you're unsure, then yeah, go with what the coaches say. Give up the objectives and farm. Even though I'm ahead, I shouldn't get cocky against this Skarner, but the Quinn abuser on our team is way too overconfident. I need to stop covering for players like that. Being ahead comes with the expectation to play aggressively, take chances and make bold plays, but in low ELO, the only way players seem to learn their limits is by dying. If we play too cautiously, you risk losing tempo and potentially throwing the game. Take our Quinn for example. He's ahead, but he's got no mana, no vision, and yet he's still playing aggro. Overconfidence? Maybe. I'd say it's just plain stupidity. This game is a good example of how team diff is still a real issue, and Riot still hasn't managed to balance their ranking system. We're way ahead right now, to the point where I think if I went AFK, my team would still win. But that highlights two key problems. First, the matchmaking isn't fair. Some players are either first timing a champion, or they're duoing with someone else, which ruins the balance. Meanwhile, everyone else seems to be playing seriously. The question is, how should the game balance matchmaking? Should it be based on win rate, champion mastery, how long someone has been playing? It's tough to get right. The only way to ensure good games is if every player is genuinely playing to win. Even if you're bad, if you're still trying, that's what counts. But in this game, despite being ahead, my allies aren't exactly playing smart. A lot of gold is still up for grabs, like free towers, and no one is going for them. That's a red flag. They just got lucky this game. As for my build, I didn't go for Swifties due to the sheer amount of CC. After a long day at work, I wasn't confident in my dodging skills, so I opted for Mercury Treads. Normally, I'd say you should rely on dodging unless you're up against at least 3 champions with heavy crowd control, which was the case here. But sometimes you're just too tired, and it's safer to take the Mercury Treads and deal with it. At this stage of the game, we're super ahead. I was originally planning to buy Protobelt first, but I made a mistake. I thought Protobelt shared the same component as Cosmic Drive, specifically the Hextech alternator. But when I backed, I realized you actually need Kindle Gem and another Hextech item, so I decided to pick Protobelt as my second item instead. Unfortunately, I wasn't satisfied with that choice, and it left me feeling like I didn't get to see the item's full potential. I have to commend the League of Legends support players, especially Zera mains, because they're always willing to give up a kill just to place a ward. Take Zyra, for example. Her plants can literally act as wards, and yet, instead of using that, or going for a blue Farsight ward, she'll just push mid without vision. Pushing the wave would force the enemy to show themselves. But hey, you can't predict what a noob will do, even in high ELO. It's frustrating when simple decisions like this could have a big impact on the game, but here we are. Finally, I've completed the Rocketbelt item and now it's time for the test drive. It shouldn't be a problem at this point since we're ahead, but sadly it is the end of the first game. I decided to head into a training game to test the interaction between Stridebreaker and Rocketbelt on Volibear. I found a significant difference between the two. Rocketbelt synergizes well with Volibear's passive, offering a 12% attack speed boost at max stacks, cooldown reduction, more damage on the shield, and an auto attack reset. Stridebreaker, however, comes with its own set of perks, an animation trick, added attack speed, a slow, and a movement speed boost. It's a tough choice, so I suggest trying both and going with what feels best. Personally, I prefer Stridebreaker, but the real purpose of this video is to explore the practical advantage of using Rocketbelt. Some people focus only on the end result, but it's important to consider the components leading up to it. Sometimes the components are so weak that you lose the game before reaching your full build. The second game was a complete clown fiesta, one of those games where you end up hating every player. Despite starting with a gold lead, thanks to the new meta of warding the enemy jungle, everything went downhill. I was fully prepared this time, determined to make the most out of Rocketbelt. I even swapped to a sweeping lens early because lately, every jungler wards your jungle, giving you free gold by clearing them. We were in a good mental state, making some solid plays, and things were looking promising. That is, until we met our bot side. That's when everything fell apart. We died at bot side while the fish was floating around. Classic no memory syndrome. This death marked the beginning of the downfall. What a lot of players don't realize is that when your ally is taking damage, the enemy team can't focus all of it on you. Well. What happened next speaks for itself. Against Nocturne, the team must collapse on you. In this game, what tilted me the most was that while I was taking damage, my team was dodging imaginary spells, or just standing in the corner. Huge red flag. Your team is full of incompetent players who mimic pro players but don't actually understand what they're doing. At this stage of the game, no matter what I do, we're still behind, and it feels like my team just doesn't have that edge to carry or do anything on their own unless I'm there. At this point, it's like hitting a wall. Every move I make seems to fail. There's zero pressure, and my allies are dying randomly. Whenever I try to push, the game just gets harder. You can almost feel the loss creeping in, but the key is to play for the win no matter what. Even if you lose, at least you won't have regrets. Regrets can haunt you in the next games, and you'll start losing for no reason at all. In this game, I saved Rocketbelt for the second item because things were on the verge of going downhill fast. No one is immune from tilting, and I'll admit, I started feeling the urge to just stop trying and jump into a new game. But no, never do that. Whenever you get that thought, take a mental reset. You'll feel as fresh as a new player after a little break. Also, I still hadn't tested the item properly, so there was always hope, and even in the darkest situations, there's room for fun moments. Or maybe the Bow's item pick is cursed and I should avoid building it altogether. The thing I noticed on the minimap told me we could take down Gnar before his allies could reach him. His position was practically begging for a fight. With my strong bot side picks, I knew our potential, but I completely forgot that we were in this mess because my team was horrendously bad. After a series of poor plays, my instinct was to split push, but Nocturne kept picking off Nami for free, and that one play was enough to keep my ADC on standby, doing nothing. Meanwhile, Shen wasn't farming, wasn't pressuring, just standing in bushes taunting people. Yet another red flag. All it led to was me engaging, trading kills, and wasting time while the team wasn't making any meaningful progress. Sad times indeed, but there was a silver lining earlier around blue buff when Rocketbelt actually came in handy. I wanted to deny Nocturne his spell shield still ended up with doing fair damage. And when you're chasing someone, the dash feels faster and smoother than stride breakers. Still, 1.5 games aren't enough to definitively say that Rocketbelt is better, but I can confidently say it has huge potential. It just requires more games to truly understand the different combos and playstyles you can execute with it. Luck definitely smiles on those who are in the right place at the right time. This moment wasn't a game-changing event, but it did offer a glimpse of hope. Stealing the Baron is always a huge mental boost for the team, no matter how poorly they might be performing. To be honest, I didn't even register the idea of stealing the Baron at first. I just saw it was low and instinctively spammed my R to try and secure it. Sometimes those split-second decisions pay off. I absolutely hate situations like this. When the team is so passive, it's incredibly frustrating. I went to face check, expecting some backup, but where's the heal? Where's the help? It's like everyone's just standing around waiting for someone else to make a move. Or maybe I am the one asking more from allies that are just there to fill the crowd. As an advice, always tune down your expectations from others until they show potential. By the way, I'm the only one pinging in the game. Rarely does anyone say anything or do anything. This is what I call the zombie effect. Riot mentioned they would introduce bots to normal games, and I think there's a bug because some of those bots have made it into solo queue as well. I was wondering where my team was, and you guessed it right, they're dead. Now we're trying to salvage what we can and steal the second Baron. So far, the item feels solid. Volibear's itemization is quite unique. Pretty much anything can work if you have good gameplay, except for lethality, because I find Volibear's combos to be clunky. I can't quite explain it, but every time I go with Yumu's blade, I end up losing the game. It's impossible to achieve any lasting results. It's just death after death. I keep wondering what play could carve a path to victory. I should really put a sticker somewhere that says, "When all hope is gone, just split push." It would serve as a big reminder right behind my screen. I would say this was my honest mistake, but I wouldn't stress too much about it. Even if I die, it wouldn't change the outcome much. However, the Swifties are starting to drag me down, and this Ahri player seems really skilled at landing their charms. Most of the fights are happening, and I'm left wondering why we're facing 3 or 4 enemies when it feels like we're really struggling to make a stand. For example, here I am taking all the damage, yet my allies are still running away. When I die, they feel the urge to avenge my useless death by dying alongside me. This cycle keeps repeating itself, and the main issue is that it's very hard to escape from this whirlpool. Still, sometimes you just need to engage with the enemy team. As you've probably noticed by now, we have no synergy whatsoever. My team is playing defensively for no particular reason, and we have zero pressure in the game. We're just existing to provide the enemy team with a tutorial on how to rank up. Well, this is what it looks like when you play Volibear with Rage. It's a roller coaster of highs and lows, showcasing both the thrill of engaging in fights and the frustration of dealing with a team that just doesn't sync up. Remember, every game is a lesson, whether you win or lose, and adapting your strategies is key. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment with your thoughts. Your feedback is always appreciated. Until next time, keep grinding, and be careful from the bows builds because I feel they are cursed. Thank you for watching. Take care and peace.